Okay. Just had some really annoying stuff happen with OBS, which I think is all solved now, so I can go ahead and start building this thing out properly. All right, Luke at ldboard. Oh, I think it's something like test@example.com. I'm just going to log into the app and then we can start building this out. And gosh, maybe I'm not running the server. Let's just try going to localhost. Nope. So jump into back API, make sure the server's running. And then we'll just do a refresh because I might already be logged in. Yeah, there we go. And we're just building everything on this chat page right now. Let Beat do its thing, get all the assets. Cool. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is building this out. And I want to make sure we have all the modules built. I just did this before, and I'm pretty sure I do. Playground release and playground. And I'm pretty sure that covers everything inside of this design. It's dealing with those two models, playground release and playground. Okay, so the next thing is how do we end up getting this dialog opened? All right, what's going wrong in here? It's probably got to do with the rename that I did to playground, from playground version to playground release. So let's do a find in this folder. I've got to get used to that hotkey because I do this a lot. Shift-Alt-F. There we go. Anything with the word version in it is probably wrong. Yeah, there we go. Playground version is now playground release. All right, that one actually is correct. And this would be playground release, and that's releases. It's a plural. There we go. So that one's done. All right, and it looks like I did a little bit of boilerplate on this before. So let's do a reveal on that and just change some of these. All right, let's get some of this boring stuff done. So version becomes release. Let's just copy that. Same thing here. Releases. Copy that again, paste it in there. Copy that one, paste it in there. Might go full screen at this point. And playground release. This is one of the cool things about using the local storage plugin now. I don't have to get all this stuff built and, you know, all the naming conventions decided on straight up. Well, that's not going to work because we've got some plurals. So all the ones that say versions, we call that releases. Yeah, so I don't have to name things on the back end just yet. Okay, let's see if that gets us into the green. And it does, very nice. So basically I want to make it so that this dialog, this manage playgrounds dialog, is just shown by default. And that is on the chat page. So I'm going to jump in there. And that was, what is that component? I might actually just do this. Let's go. Where are you? You are a page sticky on the main layout. Okay, that makes it easier. Main layout. And then we got this settings menu here. So basically, I just want to set this equal to true by default because it's going to make it easier to develop. So now if I refresh this page, and I'm not getting hot module reloading at all for some reason. Oh, by the way, exciting news. The Vite version 4, there's a beta currently out for that. The Raspberry's currently working on. So soon we're going to have support for Vite version 4, which I imagine is going to do some cool things for hot module reload. I actually don't know. I should look that up. But yeah, that'll be really cool. Hey, Google, turn the AC off. It's getting a bit hot in here. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and start developing this. There was this idea I had before that I'm going to scratch now with this playground view, which was having all of these splitters in place. But then I just realized it's not a good way to design this. So I'm going to cull them. Let's do a refresh. And there we go. We're ready to develop. So let's go from kind of the outside in here. We have the view. Next, we want the manage playground card being displayed inside of that view. So let's go ahead and say, just split that. Don't think I need this window. Hygiene, component, new. This is for a module. This is for a playground. And I believe we called it the manage playground card. There we go. So you can even just copy paste this now. Manage playground card. And so in here, I might wrap this one level deeper. I just get the feeling I'm going to need it in this case. And there's nothing wrong with wrapping things in more divs. I'm going to give this a full width, and it's going to have all of my playgrounds inside of it. So manage playground card. Unfortunately, we'll have to restart Vola every time we generate things. Give that a second. Save that. And we're going to go nice and slow here and check if everything works one at a time. So there we go. That component is in there. Let's go ahead and build the component. So we'll come in here. We'll make it a Q card. I want to have an image at the top of that card. And this one, we probably could use, we'll use Quasar's Q image. And then at the bottom of that, we're going to have a Q card actions. And let's just write the word actions there to give us a start. Maybe we'll jump out of full screen. So usually I'd just be using my two computer screens for this, but can't really do it in this case because I'm streaming. There we go. So we've got our card with our image, which is currently set to nothing. So this card is going to need playgrounds. So we'll say here playgrounds, and that's going to equal an array of playgrounds. There we go. Now playgrounds have an image, so source is equal to playground. We'll do a for loop on here. Hang on, I've gone ahead and confused myself. This would be a playground singular because it's a card. This is for showing an individual playground. And then the source here would equal playground dot something something source. What did we call that? Looks like we don't have one. So let's control click that. Jump in here. And we'll call this thumbnail source. Did I spell that right? Yeah, for some reason it didn't look right to me, but that is right. So now we can come down here and say playground dot thumbnail source, and we'll use that as the image. We shouldn't need anything in there. That should be enough. Save that. And then we've got the actions showing up here. Okay, so we'll come back to the playgrounds view and we'll say v-for playground in, and we've got our playgrounds indexer here. Playgrounds indexer dot repo.all. Give me all of my playgrounds. And then we'll set the key equal to the current playgrounds ID. And this wants the playground as well, which is why we're getting the red squiggly. I love that we have TypeScript in our components. And there we go. So now we iterate over all of our playgrounds for which we have none. So we're going to need a create button at the bottom right side of the page here. And that would be this one here. And that's going to open up our create. It's not REPL. I'm changing the language around this. Our create playground dialog. So now we're going to have to create the create playground dialog. Come in here, hygiene module, not module, component new. This component is for a module. This component is for a playground, and we're calling it create playground dialog. Bam. Now I can come down here and add that at the bottom. Might as well get started with restarting Vola now. Create playground dialog, control space, give that a quick second to load. And there we go. So now we want to be able to show that dialog. So we got our playground creator, that's where I would put that. So let's say const show create, or just show dialog is equal to a ref that is equal to false by default. Whack that in there. In fact, let's make it true by default because it's going to make it easier for us to develop. And this is going to v model playground creator. Is that what I called it? Yep, playground creator dot show dialog dot value. Let's come in here, refresh the page, and we have to actually build that out a little bit. So let's come in here and actually make it a dialog. One thing I'm going to do later on with my generators is make it so that it uses the last word to figure out the quasar component you're using. So if you create a component called create playground dialog, it goes, oh, I know there's a QDialog component, therefore we'll put a QDialog in there by default. That would be really cool. But I don't have that right now. That'll be for later. I might just get rid of all of that for now. And let's see if that works. And yeah, it looks like it has actually opened another dialog. It's just by default, the dialogs don't look like much. We're going to use our base dialog for this. So let's say b dialog, or we can even make this our b create dialog. There we go. Save that. And we're also going to need to know, actually we don't need any context knowledge here, so that should be enough. Let's make this a Q card section. And then we'll say this is where the form goes. Form here. Save. And there we go. I want to give it a toolbar. So toolbar is equal to create playground. And this is actually title, not toolbar. So let's try that. And there we go. Create playground. That's where our form goes. And we've got our create button. Super cool. Next, I want to be able to model whatever we have in here. So I'm going to say const define modules. By the way, you don't get this by default. I'm using Vue macros in order to get defined models here. And I know Vue 3.3 has its own defined model, but I prefer the one that you get with Vue macros. So that's what I'm using. And by the way, and I've also thought about what it's going to be like to migrate this in the future. And it's not going to be a big enough problem that if I get stuck with this and it ends up not being supported, it's not going to be difficult to migrate it. So I just wanted to cover some of those questions that might come up related to what you're seeing here. I think it gives just a phenomenal dev experience. So I love this macro and I use it all the time. Okay, so we are modeling the form here. So I want to be able to model the form. So let's come in here and say the form and give it a type, which is going to be Pina ORM form. And we're going to give that our playground. And there we go. So now we need the form, which is the next component we've got here, the playground form. So let's go ahead and generate that. Hygen component new. It's for a module, it's for a playground, and it's called playground form. So now let's go ahead and start restarting Vola because it doesn't like my generators. And we'll call this playground form. Give that a quick second to show up. There it is. Save that and give this a cheeky little refresh. And now we can see the playground form component is in there. So let's jump into that and start building it out. So for the playground form, we're going to use the same concept here. But in this case, instead of calling it form, we call it model value. Since model value is the default, so if you don't give it a name, model value is the default. And on a form, it's basically obvious that when you're v-modeling in a form, that you're modeling the form. So I didn't think it was necessary to have to say v-model form. And therefore, when inside of my forms, I always just use model value. Okay, so here we will v-model the form. I can basically just steal all of that. I already did. Let's import that. Let's import playground. And now we can go ahead and start building the form out. Boom. it's going to have an alias and it's going to have an ESM URL, blah, 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 blah. So let's call this Q form. Q input here, V model is equal to model value. And what you can do is also like rename this at the time. So now we can call it a form, which might just be a bit nicer. And that's going to model the alias there. And let's give it a label equal to alias. Save that. Let's move on to the next bit, which is the ESM URL template, form.esm URL template. That's exactly what I called it. There we go. And this is a few other things on it. What else do we have on this? Default version. Okay, so I'll set that to 0.0.1 by default. And thumbnail source, that's right. We want it to have an image in there now. Of course, we'll want uploading at some point, but for now, I'm going to make it so you can just paste one directly in there. So we'll come up here and we'll say form.thumbnail source. Keep it super simple. And I think I do just want to add a little bit of, some icons in here as well, just because it's fun. So a before icon for that, which is going to be a Q icon with a name equal to MDI IM maybe image like that. All right, let's see what we got so far. Okay. Something weird is going on there when I open this up. Maybe I need to save that. It might be because this is opening sort of a second later. Bugger, it's kind of frustrating. So what I might do is we'll set that equal to false by default, set timeout. This is just for developing. And in 500 milliseconds, or maybe we'll just wait a full second there just in case. Show dialog is equal to true. Let's try that. All right, so looks like there's some console errors. I should have seen that coming. Can I read properties of undefined reading thumbnail source in playground form? Okay, so it looks like stuff isn't being passed down correctly, which totally makes sense because I don't think I've implemented some of this form related stuff. So let's get rid of that. We'll set this equal to true by default. And I believe the problem is that here we go. I haven't actually given it the form yet. So V model is, for the form, is equal to, and we want the playground creator, which actually gives us a form for free, .form.value, which should be typed correctly. Looks like it is. So now we can jump into the dialog. That should be working. Yeah, there we go. That's all I needed to do. All right, jumping out of that, let's come back in here and work on this form. All of these, I like to use the filled design. So let's make them filled. And let's add some icons to these ones as well. Boom. And for this first one, we'll give it an icon of, I don't know, maybe like that @ symbol. Ooh, what is that? Let's go to Iconies, material design, icons. And I think there's one for an @ symbol. What do you call that when you reference someone with an @ symbol? I think there's a name for that. I don't know. You know what? This really doesn't matter. Maybe just like the letter A, but in an icon-y kind of letter A, because I know that they do that. Yeah, here we go. That'll do. Maybe one that's circular because it looks prettier. Why am I getting carried away with this stuff? Yeah, this one here, I think. So what's that called? Alpha A circle outline. Let's come back here. MDI alpha A circle outline. I think that one looks good. And then for this one, we've got the template URL. So something related to a template. Let's just try that. Probably shouldn't have bothered with icons in hindsight, to be honest. This stuff doesn't really matter enough. maybe we can do the same thing, but with a T. Yeah, screw it. MDI alpha T circle outline. There we go. Let's get that imported and see what this looks like now. Nice. Looks good. Now, it would be tempting to add some margining here within the form. But what I think I'd prefer to do is actually do that within the create playground dialog. Therefore, I've got more control. So if I come up here and say class, I like to keep my lower components as dumb as I can. So the lower you go down the component tree, the dumber they are. So the class of that is equal to q dash gutter on the y-axis only, and we'll set that equal to medium. Let's just see what that looks like. I think that looks good. There we go. I don't know why I bothered with these icons. Doesn't matter though. So the next thing is just fixing this label. That one's alias. This one is thumbnail URL. That'll do. Okay. So now when we're ready to create this, we call create, and we have this create button here because we automatically get that for free with the create playground dialog. And now we can just jump into the view and say, hey, playground creator, I want you to create it when that button is clicked. Playground creator, dot create. And I think because the form, the form's already modeled in there, everything is just going to work. And I should have loading here as well. So I can say playground creator creating.value. But that shouldn't be loading, that should be creating. So let's come into here and check the B create dialog and see if I created that. Yeah, there we go, creating. We'll put the spinner on the button. So now we can give it a thumbnail URL, control 2. Let's just create some sample data here. New file, and let's just say Quasar image in Google. Quasar framework. Actually, maybe it would be cool to have one of those. That's all right. Maybe one with the payoff. There we go. Let's. We'll have to copy the image address is what we'll do. So that's our image. And for the ESM URL, oh man, what am I doing for that currently? So in order to figure out how to get the code for this playground, I'm just doing one in my public directory for now. Yeah, that's how I tested it. So it would be, well, I should actually nest this in a folder now, giving it a version 0.0.1. Whack all that in there. I'm not sure I actually need the styles anymore. I think they get built into the components. That's okay. So that is going to be slash playground view REPL. This is so cool, man. I can't wait till this is built. Sometimes I get this feeling where I'm just so excited about what I've built because I can already see it in my head. And like I just want it to be done because it's so cool. That's what I'm feeling right now with this. I think this is just going to be awesome. Whew. All right, so let's copy that. Paste that in there. Copy that and paste that in there. And we need to give this an alias as well, which is basically going to be a unique way to sort of build the component for this because we're using ES modules and native HTML components. So let's just call this Quasar, I guess. You know what, though? This wouldn't be the Quasar REPL. This would be the view REPL, and then you would give it settings, which makes it a Quasar REPL. So what I should actually do, just because I want some real-looking data here, say view image. Yeah, here we go. That one's perfect. Huh. So I think I can just right-click on that and say copy image address. Paste that in there. And then let's paste that in there for the logo. And we'll call the alias view-REPL. And the ESM URL, that should be right. Now, I'm not sure I've done everything right, so that might not create straight up. Looks like it didn't. Let's open our console here. And I'm going to go back to the old way of defining emits because for some reason it's not currently working for me. I always get this problem. It works, but I get the warning, which is kind of frustrating. I don't like it polluting my console. So I believe that's in the create dialog. Yeah, where I'm using the old style, the new style emits. So let's change that to event is create. Not that big a deal. It's pretty easy to change. Okay, and now let's jump into the view. And when this is created, playground creator calls create. So let's jump in here. And now we can say, hey, on create. So when you're done creating, I want you to hide this dialog. So show dialog.value is equal to false. Oop, there we go. Let's do a refresh and try this again. I'm going to give that form some default values just to make it easier to develop. Oh, that's because some of my code, which was referencing this JavaScript, is now not working because I just added an extra folder, so that's fine. I want to put some default values in here, so that's going to be easy. I can just say creator dot form dot value is equal to, and I think I can literally just overwrite the whole thing and say, for example, alias, thumbnail URL. Let's get that. Here we go. What are we calling it? Well, let's just call it view REPL. Now I should be able to get that thumbnail URL. Yep, there it is. Because I just know that a few things are going to go wrong, so we might as well just pre-fill this form so that it's easy to work with. And then we've got the ESM URL template. Now, I actually did this wrong before. You don't want to just paste that in. That part is going to have the version. So essentially, I'm saying the version gets inserted into there. All right. It's not assignable to type. Empty string. Oh, that's weird. So it looks like the typing for this does something. Oh, no, I've just typed it weirdly. Why did I do that? It's silly. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to have to deal with these errors for now until I go ahead and fix that. Or I could just fix it now. Yeah, let's go into message block. This is where I was testing to see if this would work. And it did, which was super cool, 0.0.1. So let's try that again. Cool, it's working now. Okay. So let's try this create button again. And it's showing up. All right, everything just worked. And it's being stored in local storage now because of those cool composables we built last time. Man, this is wicked. Let's work on the next thing. Next, we want to have underneath that form a place where you can create the release as well. So we've got this playground release form. Let's go ahead and generate that. Hygiene component new for a module. This is for a playground release. Playground, let's go ahead and just copy this. Bam. Would have been faster to type it out. Okay, so let's jump back into that form. Hang on, my glasses are getting caught on my microphone. It's kind of frustrating. There we go. Yep. So we get the playground, but this won't be in the form. This will be in the dialogue. So we want to open up the playground dialogues, the create playground dialogue. Yeah. And basically I want to say, hey, when you're creating it, also create a playground release while you're at it, because you wouldn't be creating a playground unless you had a release to create as well. So now we can say playground release form. Looks like good old Volo's going to want to restart for that one to work. There we go. And maybe we'll steal some code from here. Yeah. And we'll jump into playground release form, paste that in there, and we'll basically just move this around. Now, this is where I wrote the stuff for that. It's got the version, ESM URL, and JSON schema, which I might just make a text area for now because I want to do some really cool stuff with editing JSON schema very soon. So version, ESM URL, JSON schema. Let's do it. Form, so this is going to be a playground version instead. Form.esm URL. Hang on, that's not right. Come on, voila. We don't have a playground version? Oh, because we're calling it a release. Ooh, come on, Luke. Playground release. There we go. All right, there we go. ESM URL. I thought it was weird that we had template showing up there. I'm just going to call this icon concept. It's a bit silly of me to do that from the beginning. And we don't want an alias. We want a ESM URL. I prefer to use lower cases. I don't think like people like being screamed at. And that's the ESM URL. This one is the version. Cool. And later on, I want to do some cool validation and easy ways to bump versions and stuff like that. And the last thing we've got is we'll turn this into a text area. I think you have to say type is equal to text area. We'll probably want this to auto grow as well. So we'll set that equal to true. And we're definitely going to turn this into like some really cool editor that we can use to whack JSON in there. And this JSON schema is to validate it. So when people want to add settings to the playground, so basically the idea is you create playgrounds on playgrounds. So for example, you have the view REPL, which is the playground, and then on top of that, you will then build the Quasar implementation of the view REPL. Anyway, let's just move on. JSON schema validator, maybe we'll call it. And yeah, I think that'll do. Let's try this again. And now we want that form to start showing up. I'm just going to delete those buttons entirely. Those icons, they're not even helpful. Okay. Now this form is going to need to be modeled. That might be why it's complaining at me. So v model is equal to, and for the create playground dialog, you send in the playground and you send the playground release form. Playground release form, let's call it that. Call it what it is. Now we'll jump into, I might just open this project on its own rather than the monorepo. That might actually help Volar a little bit. So let's come in here and open that with code. And then I'll just get out of this version. What haven't I saved? Don't need that. Sweet. Close that. Jump out of full screen, throw it over there. Open up the console, pdev, split. So I'm ready to generate things. And what were we working on? We were working on the create dialog. Create playground dialog, that's right. Again, like one of the reasons, like my brain didn't think of the word playground then, but I knew I wanted the dialogue. And I was able to just say create dialogue and then see all the create dialogue related stuff because we have such consistent naming, which is something I think is really cool. The less I have my brain is to focus on finding files and things like that, the better. I just want to think about the file and then go straight to it. Okay, so there's something wrong here. Let's go ahead and get that imported. I think that might have been the problem. Nope. All right, let's actually read this message. Okay, so it might just be because I haven't sent that through yet. So we want to look at the manage playgrounds view, playground release creator. Let's send its form down. So v model is equal to playground. Specifically though, we're modeling the release form, release creator dot form dot value. Let's give that a go, see if that works. Has this got to do with an import? Yeah, it looks like it's import related. This is I always get these errors with Vue, which are very difficult to figure out where the actual problem is. Maybe this is something they'll get better at in the future. But for example, it's kind of hard to see exactly where this error is coming from. So it looks like it might not be coming from there or any of those. Okay, so let's bring all of that back. I kind of just have to go through them one at a time to figure it out. All right, it might be the use playground creator. I don't know. Man, I'm actually a little lost. What's going on here? Can it be used? Okay, I should have read the error better. This isn't the error that I thought it was. Playground release form, I think, is a prop. No, it's definitely not. So then playground release form, we're doing a V model there. So maybe the problem lies in it. Not just a prop there either. Create playground dialogue, they're saying that this problem is in. Okay, so that seems to be where the problem is. Ah! Didn't make it available. All right, there we go. Because they didn't make it available, we received it as a prop, and we weren't receiving the variable that define models creates. No, all right, that was a bit silly of me. Totally my fault. Okay, that looks like it's working now. Let's go back to the dialogue then, get my bearings, and we'll call this maybe initial release. And we'll create a bit of space between them, maybe like Q, margin bottom, medium. I don't really know how I can design this nicely. I might just think more about that later on. And let's make this, like it just needs to stand out a little bit more. So maybe like, let's just put it in a span and say class is equal to Q dash body 1. I think it's text, body 1. Yeah, and then maybe just like a Q margin bottom of extra small. I can think about design later on. I don't want to get carried away with this. So class is equal to QGutterY as well. We'll give it the same. Yeah, all right, that's definitely good enough. You don't want to get too caught up in proof of concept. That'll do. All right, so now we're modeling both of those. So when we create it, we also want to create the initial release and make sure that initial release is associated with this form. So let's go back to the view because all backend stuff always happens on the view. And maybe we'll just create a function directly in here. Async function create playground. And we'll do that here. Create playground. Now we can say playground creator create. Now I just want to check, do I still get from that in use create resource, do I still get the resource that was just created? Don't think I do, so I need to make sure that that happens. Yeah. So when all of this is done, we also want to say resource.value is equal to the merged form. Man, I need to fix those typings. Not important right now. Don't want to get carried away. So it gets created, and let's just do a console.log there of playground creator dot resource dot value. So the thing that was just created, we should be able to essentially take its ID and use it to then create the initial release, because the initial release has to be associated with the playground we just created. So let's try that. I need to make this sticky, that create button on the bottom, but that's for later. Let me just give this a refresh just in case it doesn't have that code. And let's do create. All right, we got undefined there, so it looks like that didn't work. We say resource.value is equal to the merged form. But this is, I didn't set this as a promise like I was supposed to. Okay, so let's say use index, or whatever, indexer. Oh, we're out of the monorepo now. That's all right. I think I know how to do this. So we'll return a new promise. And it's going to receive resolve. We're not going to bother with reject. This is just for messing around with things. And then when that's done, and by the way, this now needs to know that it's returning a promise. Let's clean this up a little bit. Which is giving us void back. And we do a set timeout, and then when we're done with all of that, we call resolve. Okay, so now resource, this should be weighted on, and resource.value should actually be the correct value by the time this is created. And we go. There we go. That worked. Cool. So, actually, let me just test that again. We need a create button. We don't even have a create button yet. Does this get an ID? It does. So it gets an ID. And now we can just use that ID. Look at how nice this code's going to look. When we create the playground, you say, yo, go ahead and create that playground. And then I can say playground releases creator.create. And I believe anything I pass through here just gets merged into the form. I think that's how I built it, which makes this code really, really succinct. Yeah, so that just gets merged, and it gets replaced by, ooh, okay, I'm not sure I agree with that. Really, the form param should take precedence over what's in the form itself. Yeah, I'm going to switch those two around. Yeah, so you get the form, anything you pass through gets sort of overrides what's in there. And honestly, I think the thing you pass as a param should take precedence over the form defaults as well. Because the last minute you're essentially saying this is the stuff that I want to enforce. So I think that API makes a little bit more sense. Cool. Now we can come in here and say create, and you literally just have to say, we should get full typing here. Bugger. But I haven't finished typing it. So playground release. And the thing I haven't given it is a playground ID, but I have. It is right there. Have I... Playground release? Declare the playground ID? Have I done this wrong? No? Oh, null or string? Maybe that's why. Yeah, okay, there we go. I just forgot to say that it could be a string. Might as well add a new line in here. I always like adding new lines. I see no reason if you keep your components nice and tight. I see no reason to always try and keep things in one line, which is different to being succinct. It's good to write succinct code, but I don't need to go all the way across the page just so I can try and get things in one line. I just think that's usually a vanity thing for people. I could be wrong. What do I know? What do I know about their life? .id. So there we go. How cool is that? Pretty succinct code. And when this is, all done, it's actually really awesome because this code handles all the errors as well. So any errors we get with creating the playground gets handled, and any errors we have with creating the release gets handled as well. Then you can easily do something like this. Say playground.has errors. I got rid of them because we're using the local storage version just for prototyping. But you can then just say, if we have errors, then I want you to return and not create, because you can't create the release unless you have the playground that it's attached to. So it's, this code remained really, really succinct. Now we can come in here and then simply say const creating playground is equal to a ref, which is false by default. It becomes true there, and we're just going to be naive here and just say true there, false there, and assume everything goes right. We could wrap that in a try catch, but yeah, I'm just using local storage. I'm not going to bother right now. And let's see if we can get all of this working. So we need some design stuff happening. Let's come in here and delete the playgrounds we currently have. Did I just delete all my locals? Oh, crap, maybe I did. Luke at, I don't know, what did I call this? Test at example.com. There we go. /chat. Okay, back to where we started. And now we will give this a version of 0.0.1. And I actually want that to be set to 0.0.1 by default. So how about this? We can add a watcher in the playground. Oh, maybe we'll just do this. Playground release creator dot form dot value dot version. Let's just default that to 0.0.1. Oh, it already did it. Yeah, there we go. ESM URL. It's basically the template, and later on I'm going to make it so this just automatically creates for you. 0.0.1. Actually, I don't even want the user to maybe even see it at this point. I don't know, I got to think about that. Yeah, this probably gets automatically created for us. Yeah. We'll automatically create that. So let's come into here and we'll say playground release form and ESM URL automatically gets created based on the playground. And then for the JSON schema, I've accidentally just haven't put in the right prop there. Okay. So then you say, the other thing we'll have to do now is essentially paste that variable into the template. Oh, I know I can do this with Lodash. Ooh, okay, I got to dive into this old chestnut now. So in Lodash, there's a way you can use templates. Yeah, here we go. And I just want to change it from this kind of percentage thing to using an opening and closing curly bracket. Yeah, there we go. And they've got an example here. All right, so I'm literally just going to steal this code because I know nothing about regex. I'm literally just the worst regexer. For some reason, I never bothered in my life to learn it properly, which is a bit embarrassing, but is what it is. So how about this? We'll do a reveal on here. I'm just going to whack it here for now. And we'll call this something compiler, like URL compiler. ESM URL compiler. There we go. All right. So we're going to import, and of course we use Lodash ES here. Never just bring in Lodash unless you're using Node, in which case it doesn't really matter. Can I import template settings directly from Lodash? Let's try that template. Yeah, there we go. So now we can just say template settings. And we're going to change that to just single curly braces. And we'll have a function here called, I'm going to rename this compile ESM URL. It's a better function name because it's the action of the thing that we're doing. Okay, so that passes through the URL, which is going to be a string. We can probably do that up front here rather than doing it in the function. And we can probably create the compiler up there as well. So compiler, or just compile, because the way you would use that is you would say compile and then the thing. In fact, we could just return that directly. Yeah, we can then return const compile ESM URL, which is equal to template, which we pull out of Lodash ES. Not return, export. So that means we don't need that anymore. Oh, but we need the URL itself. Yeah, okay, let's go back to what we had before then. So we say const compile is equal to that and the URL gets passed through here, and then we return compile, and it also receives the version in there. All right, there we go. And that gets exported. Now here we say that the version is equal to the version. All right, that was surprisingly simple. Kind of moved around a bit there. But now we can say compile ESM URL. And the idea is I should be able to do this. Compile ESM URL. My cdn.com slash my REPL slash, and this is where you can then just say version slash, well, maybe that would be it. Yeah, and the idea is the URL gets passed through, and then you have to give it the version as well, which in this case might be 0.0.1. And then that essentially just gets pasted directly into here. Cool. And we have to do it this way because in the future we might have extra properties, not just the version, that then need to get injected into the URL, and we don't know where it's going to be. So I can't just use a template string. That's why we have to create this little template compiler. What do we call it? Compile ESM URL. So now we come in here and we say ESM URL is compile ESM URL. Come on, voila. Oh, okay. Well, it usually means I've done something wrong. Export function. Oh, I've spelled compile wrong. And I've spelled it wrong here as well in the file name. All right, let's try again. Give that a quick second. All right. So now we need to give it the URL, which is going to come from the playground. So how about this? We say const. At this place, at this point we can just say playground is equal to that. That'll help us simplify our code a little bit. And then we compile it using the ESM URL template. Man, this is so cool. And then the version, which in this case is the version gets pulled from there. So let's make this a multi-liner. Dot form dot value dot version. One of the things I love about having views, everything just ends up in the same place. When you're ready to do stuff with your data, and this is a classic example of it, where you need to create two things at once, it all just kind of bubbles up and it sits in the same spot, so you can write that code in one place. I really like that. Expect that to be a template, but just to make TypeScript happy, we'll do that. And we can probably do the same here as well. Here we go. And maybe we just come in here and we say if playground. Just to make some of the type related stuff a little bit easier. I think that means I can get rid of this now. Yeah. Okay, that one, not so much. Cool. All right, so now they get created one after the other. JSON schema validator, let's just make that an empty object. And we'll go ahead and create this. Okay, so let's go full screen and let's see if it worked. We'll say, hey, view, show me Pina. We got our playgrounds. All right, there's our playground, got inserted into the store, and our playground releases as well. And it's got an ID of 0cc22220, 0cc2220. Yep, so that's linked up correctly. It's got its ESM URL, which worked, so that got injected into there. The version number got injected into there, and it knows its version as well. And it's got its JSON schema. Yeah, cool. All right, that's all working perfectly. So what's next? Well, the next thing might be to just make this layout a little bit nicer. I'm probably going to take a little break in a second. And the way I think I'll do that is, again, keeping things super simple because this is a prototype. I could easily go overboard here. I'm just going to set a max width on this. So style is equal to max width 400 pixels maybe. Let's see what that looks like. Yep, we don't want that dialog to show up by default. So let's go into the playground creator and get rid of this true that we get by default. But now we need a button. So let's come up here and say that this is a relative position. And if that's relative, that means I can easily come down here and say Q button and say class is equal to absolute bottom right. Label is equal to that. Let's see if that worked. Ooh, okay, so it's not taking up the full height of the screen. Okay, I need to think about this. Because I want to be able to have those sexy scroll bars on the right side there, which means the height of this needs to be fixed. And in order to do that, we go into the dialogues. So we go to the create, manage playgrounds dialog. And we should be able to say here the height is equal to, let's say 100 VH, and then we'll add the calculation in to see if that works. Yep. And now that button's in the right spot. And then we just add the calculation. So we say calc, and I'm just going to do this visually. Now, this might not be the best solution for now because, as you can imagine, you might have scenarios in the future where this dialog might show different sizes depending on the platform. So if you're on mobile, maybe this will show differently. But as I keep saying, this is going to do for now. So what I might do is just eyeball it, and we'll come in here, and we'll just move this number until it's right. So what I usually do is I wait till the scroll bar's gone, and then 1. Oh, maybe just, I like round numbers, so let's just leave it like that. There we go. Paste that in there. Nice, and let's make that a fab. It's going to look fab. Fab. I'm going to give you a color equal to primary. You're going to get yourself an icon equal to MDI plus. There you are. There it is. So now we can go ahead and click on that to show the create dialog. Playground creator. Oh my God, look at that. It's right there, ready for me to do whatever I want with. Boom. Create. Nice. One more thing I want to do before taking a break. Oh, my washing machine's going off. That's good timing. Give this a button, which is going to be releases. And we also want an edit button. So label is equal to releases. And I might do no caps. Oh, no, maybe we'll keep the caps actually. Yeah. What? Outline. Okay, we probably want to, yeah, we want to make this a dark theme. Ooh, I like this little shadow I get here. Where's that coming from? No, whatever, I like it. Oh, it's because cards get shadows, and now that it's dark, I can see the shadow. So we can click on there to view the releases, and I want an edit button as well. So I think I can just do a Q space and then add the button here. Is that right? Yeah, there we go. So then I can say here Q dash button icon is equal to MDI pencil. We'll make this flat. We'll make this round. We'll refresh the page, and there it is. Okay, so then you'll be able to click on releases, and that's when we'll start building out all of this stuff. And then edit is essentially going to be this part of this dialog, so the form. And instead of a create dialog, it will be a edit dialog. These forms are a bit ugly right now, and I think it's due to the nature of the data, but that's fine. As long as it works. So let's just bask in the glory of the application so far. I like doing this every now and then. So we can create servers. My server, give that server color. Let's go ahead and give it an image as well. Awesome icon. Let's go with that. Images. All right, let's bit ridiculous. Copy image address. There we go. Let's just do that for now. So that's a server. And then we can add channels to the server. Yeah, there we go. Right click and go add room. Fun stuff. Now we go to server. And the idea is you click on there. And all of this stuff this is actually real working stuff coming from a backend. I just haven't added the concept of servers and rooms yet. Which should be pretty easy once all of this is built out. And we got our little chat area, which I'll make a little bit prettier later on. We can go manage playgrounds, and this is where we'll be able to add playgrounds. And then this is an example of what one of the playgrounds could look like, where you can just come in here and edit stuff. And when you send messages, you can also add your own highlighters. So later on, I'll make it so you can add highlighters. So you can just say, you know, TS, or if you've got some weird language like my-language, it will allow you to add your own highlighter. And yeah, that'll work. Is that how it, yeah, how do I do that? 1, 2, 3, my lang. Yeah, but of course my lang doesn't exist, and so that's not going to highlight correctly. But you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to say, for example, 1, 2, 3, REPL, and let's say that the REPL is for Quasar. And each REPL is going to have a unique identifier that you pass in here. So maybe we change it so instead of backticks, it's like colon, 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 or I don't know, some other character. But yeah, that's the idea. You'll be able to do something like REPL and then colon Quasar. So then that's the name of the REPL that you'll use. So maybe this actually is view REPL. And I want to use Quasar, which is the configuration of that REPL. Okay, so that you can have a foundation. You can be like, this is my REPL for anything view. And on top of that, I'm going to add in the Quasar library and the other Quasar related stuff. And if you wanted your own REPL, you could actually add your own config to the view REPL and call it something else, like what's it called? Bootstrap. So you got a view bootstrap REPL, or you could say like my company REPL. That's a bit of a mouthful. If you wanted to have your own REPL for your company, which, you know, incorporates a lot of your libraries, so people can share examples that actually pull from your official library CDN. Or maybe you would have one for view use. Or view use has got their own really cool REPL. So check this out. And this is all available online. This code is available online. I think it might be open source and, you know, free to use as well. You probably have to check with Anthony Fu. But you could essentially get the code for this, make your own REPL, and then here, instead of it being view REPL, it would then be view use REPL or something like that. Or maybe you just use the word view use. And I'm guessing, and I'm pretty sure actually, that this playground, this sort of REPL playground that has been built here, can be, it doesn't have to be with view use. So you could use this with anything. So maybe instead of the view REPL, people actually use this view use version of the REPL. And so you have view use, you know, whatever, and it gives you kind of this more advanced REPL if that's something that you prefer. Which I think I would. This is absolutely beautiful. Look at this. Stunning. And I know that Pina ORM actually, I'm pretty sure, used the code for that. So if we go to the playground for Pina ORM, yeah, it's using the same thing. It's just gorgeous. And imagine having that built into a chat application. And then the result that you see on the output here can then, show up here as you're chatting. And then maybe you add features where you can say, I don't want to slow down my computer, therefore don't show these by default, and I need to click on them in order to see them. So you can still do stuff like that. You'll be able to do stuff like that. So there we go. I love this. This is going to be so, so cool. I can't wait to finish building this out, and I'll see you all in the next stream.